Hi, it's Kirby Summers. It is November the 1st, the day after Halloween. I hope you guys had a good time. If you actually went out and celebrated, or you took your kids out, or you did anything like that. In the wake of my podcast several days ago on the untimely death of Matthew Perry. Hey, like the video, please. Okay, this way it gets, as I said, YouTube has an algorithm, and this way more people will see it. Um, this is a follow-up because in the wake of the death, again, the tragic and untimely death of Matthew Perry, who is better known as Chandler Bing, uh, who starred in Friends and who will be forever remembered that way, although I think he preferred not to just be remembered for that role. Rumors began spreading on social media websites about his feud with Keanu Reeves. And so I just want to go over the information that I have, and again, emphasize that drugs are used to control actors, musicians, writers. This leads back to the CIA. I'm going to explain about a certain program that you can look up that will lay it out for you, although it's just one program. And I wrote about it in connection with my ongoing series on Substack, where I'm basically going into every nook and cranny to figure out if Eric Weinstein is an intelligence asset. So in April of 2023, so just several months ago, the Guardian published an article basically saying the artist formerly known as Chandler Bing threw serious shade at the internet's boyfriend in his memoir. Now he's removing the mentions from future editions. And I'm just going to read you the article. For someone who is famous for being in Friends, Matthew Perry sure seems to have a knack for making enemies. In November, the actor who played Chandler Bing released an addiction memoir called Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, which generated a lot of headlines for all the wrong reasons. Namely, Perry was rude about Keanu Reeves, who is frequently described as the nicest guy in Hollywood and the internet's boyfriend, because of his reputation for quietly doing good deeds, dating an age-appropriate woman, and generally giving the impression that he is a thoroughly decent man. What is Perry's problem with Reeves? The fact he is still alive when other stars have died, basically. And then they quote one of the lines in his book. Why is it that the original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? And he said that at many times, so I'm going to repeat it. Why is it that the original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? And so this is something that he wrote in his memoir. It offended a lot of people. So I'm going to continue reading this article. Later in the book, he recounts hearing about the 1997 death of his friend, Chris Farley. I punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall, he recalls, adding, again, he talks about the same thing. Keanu Reeves walks among us. And so he uses that phrase, and he used it a lot. It didn't go very well for him. And so when he went to a festival of books to promote it, and he was criticized for it, he basically said that he was going to remove mention of Reeves from future editions of his memoir. And he then said that name checking Reeves, who coincidentally lives on the same street as he does, had been, quote, mean. All right. And then he went on to say that he was a big fan of Keanu and that he just selected the name randomly. And to be honest, nobody believed it, not even the people who covered the story, which has resurfaced. So uh it's like the book actually has gone back to #1 status right after his death was happened on Saturday. I can say that the reports about the cause of death appear to be a drowning. Some people speculated that it was a heart attack, but the latest news, and it's 8:50 a.m. in New York right now as I'm talking to you on Wednesday morning. I hear that the official cause has been declared as drowning. Okay. He did have a connection with Keanu Reeves, clearly. You know what? I'm going to read an NT blind from 2018. And this is what NT wrote. In 2018, Keanu Reeves was Michael Stipe and David Geffen's boy toy, and River Phoenix was banging courtly love before he died. Knowing her could definitely get you killed, maybe even by her. If you were sleeping with her back when this happened, then you did end up dead. This actor, A-list, River Phoenix, when he died, he is probably A+ list in everyone's memory, though. He publicly had actress girlfriend Samantha Mathis, but he was also regularly having S with, this time, A-B+ list singer, musician Courtney Love, who also acted. The singer was married at the time. Her husband, Kurt Cobain, also ended up dead. The crazy thing is her husband introduced her to her lover because of their mutual friend who was an A+ list singer at the time, Michael Stipe. If you want to add even more spice to this whole thing, the singer, who was openly gay, but was not at the time, was having a fling with an at the time A-list mostly movie actor Keanu Reeves, who is still firmly rooted in the closet and still A-list. That actor was having a fling with the boss, David Geffen, of the now dead husband, and spilling pillow secrets, which almost got the dead husband dropped from the record label when he was signed. That's from NT Lawyer back in 2018. In 2011, Keanu Reeves made a couple of odd comments. And I'm going to read you what he basically was telling people. He said, for a while, people were saying that David Geffen and I had gotten married. That just blew me away. Not because they thought I was gay, but that they thought I could land a guy that hot. And then he said, I went with an exorcist for a bit. I just want to know really practical things, like how do you hold someone possessed by the devil? So again, we loop back to satanic worship. I think I discussed with you the what Perry's death reminded me of, Whitney Houston and Clive Davis, who is, I'm going to tell you again, I believe he's an MK Ultra handler. There are many of them, and I believe that at the time of her death, other people viewed it as though they felt it was a satanic sacrifice. And somehow here is Keanu Reeves talking about going to an exorcist because he wanted to know, just practical stuff. How do you hold someone possessed by the devil? The CIA, which again, I write about extensively because I am aware that through the use of drugs, and a host of other devious actions, that's how they control their stars, whether it is a singer or an actor, a musician. Drugs are used to control people. And as I said in my previous podcast, they also place people in your life. We know this from having learned about Rose McGowan, who Harvey Weinstein, with the help of his attorney, David Boies, hired the Israeli-based Black Cube, who infiltrated Rose McGowan's life. And even Ronan Farrow, Ronan wrote in his book that he was so afraid at one point that someone was going to kill him, that he moved. And it is frightening when you start delving into the P word as it pertains to Hollywood. And really, we hear about it more from people who are connected to high level Ps and R people who commit R on a regular basis. And I think I gave you the example of Bill Cosby in my last podcast, but there are many people who commit the R word. These get more attention, but they also get the most, like, they have troll armies, and of course they have reputation management companies, public relation firms who hire a bunch of people because, again, it's connected to the mob, it's connected to CIA, it's connected to a lot of covert activity. And what they do to keep this information from surfacing to us, to the public, they go into and they rebut every comment. I didn't think that I was going to delete or block people who left nasty comments on my first podcast that I did the other day on Matthew Perry. But, I did sort of just block them and got rid of a lot of them. It became just too ridiculous. And I didn't want the message board under the article, the podcast, because you guys, you who want to know the story legitimately, I didn't want you to have to scroll through hundreds of ridiculous comments meant to distract and or deny or, make it so that it's impossible to believe this or believe. Like, literally, there are historical documents, and among them, I'm going to share one with you about how the CIA does control the government. So most of the public are aware, and at least many of the people who follow my work are aware that Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning were funded by the CIA. And the way that happened was the CIA created a program on June 26, 1950, known as Congress for Cultural Freedom, CCF. It was founded with money from the CIA and its allies. So think, when I say its allies, think Mossad, MI6, It was ostensibly created as an anti-communist propaganda group. However, it funded writers, poets, historians, scientists, and others who could influence the populace. The CCF, I'm going to call it CCF, but know that I'm talking about the Congress for Cultural Freedom. You can do your own research, find out about it. It's one of many groups, okay? This is one example. Was active in 35 countries. One of the key people was Nikolai Nabokov. If the name Nabokov is familiar to you, that's because he is Vladimir's cousin. Yes, the book Lolita was funded by the CIA, all right? And what does the book Lolita sort of show the public? That one can have sexual desires for a 12-year-old child. These are like subliminal messages given to the public in order to tear down our, like our shock value when we discover that, frankly, and sadly, our world is run by a bunch of P-word people, okay? So I just want to give you some more information about this program. So among the people that program and another program funded was Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol, as you probably know, is connected to John Brockman, who also is connected to Jeffrey Epstein, who was also connected to the New York Academy of Art, and which is also connected to the royal family, meaning King Charles III, Prince Andrew. I believe it was in the 1970s, perhaps early 1980s, the New York Times wrote a series of articles because it had been declared that the program stopped, but really these programs don't stop, they just morph into another name. But they wrote a series of articles which included details of false front organizations and the secret transfer of CIA money to various organizations, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. If MIT sounds familiar, it is because it is one of the places that Jeffrey Epstein funded. Now, I believe that Jeffrey Epstein is a front. He works on behalf, and I'm going to say it, people think it's Mossad. You cannot have Mossad without the help of the CIA. If you do any studies, I have an article, I believe I have it for free on my Substack, where I explain Fiona Bartlett, who was molested as a child in one of these rings. But I don't, and she was able to get confirmation that all of the rings, it's like what I have been saying the whole time, they're interconnected. That's why we have Epstein with Hollywood connections, such as Harvey Weinstein, right? He's also connected to people in the music industry, and nobody has done deep dives on his connections to people in the music industry. But all of these people are interconnected. In 1995, CIA agent Donald Jameson spoke about how the CCF worked. He basically said matters of this sort could only have been done at 2 or 3 removes, so there wouldn't be any question of having to clear Jackson Pollock, for example, or do anything that would involve these people in the organization. And it couldn't have been any closer, because most of them were people who had very little respect for the government, and in particular, certainly none for the CIA. So that the people that they used these artists, for example, Jackson Pollock and Andy Warhol. And to be honest, I almost think that Warhol knew who was backing him, but I will go into that on another day. They would target people who were anti-establishment because they would infiltrate them, and then they would ensnare, and I'm going to use the word ensnare, certain people to work on their behalf. All right. And I've already explained to you about the man who sort of snuck into Janis Joplin's life after she was discovered by Clive Davis, who is an MK Ultra handler. And I can't, there's no other term for it. MK Ultra had approximately 148 programs underneath it at the time that it was exposed in 1975 during the Church Committee hearings. But it morphed into different names. It has subdivisions, and it's alive and well. It's alive and well in our music, which is why the musicians are constantly kept in line, and why someone like Matthew Perry, who began his life in show business at a very young age, and sadly, he was probably subjected to that inappropriate type of relationship with the people in Hollywood. I found someone who said something about something that Keanu Reeves said. So apparently it had been well known among a certain group in Hollywood that Keanu was very seriously involved with David Geffen. And this person wasn't sure if it was a relationship, if it was sexual, but that everyone, like literally everyone, knew they were together. River Phoenix and Keanu were just friends, but that Van Sant said Keanu had told him they'd had the S word in the movie trailer. He could have been just trying to get a rise out of Van Sant, but there was something about River Phoenix and Keanu also being very close. And then, of course, River Phoenix dies from an overdose 8 times where it's found that he has 8 times the lethal limit of cocaine. 8 times, mixed with Persian brown heroin, the strongest kind, codeine, and diazepam. And all of these, by the way, are part of the drugs that were administered to the public unknowingly by the CIA. And again, there's a lot of information about that. I want to say that, and I want to really say this because this is River Phoenix in 1973. So I think that you guys are aware that River Phoenix was part of a cult. It was at the time called the Children of God. I myself know 2 people who were part of this cult. And theoretically, on the surface, it was founded in 1968 by a man by the name of David Berg, and it has since undergone a couple of different name changes, including Teens for Christ, the Children of God, the Family of Love, or simply the Family. Former members have accused the group of being a cult that engages in the systematic physical and sexual abuse of children, resulting in lasting trauma among the survivors. However, that cult is also connected to the CIA. The CIA created this group in order to, again, I'm gonna compare this to Alan Dershowitz, because a lot of you are very familiar with the fact that Alan Dershowitz has a history of trying to lower the age of consent. Just Google his name, Google age of consent. You should be able to find articles talking about his ongoing quest to lower the age of consent. And of course, you know that he was connected to Harvard, where Jeffrey Epstein gave money. And again, I believe Epstein, arm of the intelligence, was giving money on behalf of the intelligence agencies for whom he worked. So River Phoenix, when interviewed, he basically said, and he was interviewed in November of 1991 for Details magazine. And so there was the question, is there anything you did at an early age that you wish you had waited for? And then Phoenix says, yes, make love. And then the question was, how old were you? And then he answers, 4 years old. With whom? Kids, but I've blocked it out. That's really tragic. Another person who was a member of the same cult is Rose McGowan. These people are somehow, there's several that are attracted to the Hollywood scene, because what they do is they look for children whose souls are already broken, so, and there are various reasons why people are selected. And so to circle back to Matthew Perry, yeah, now that became an issue again. And when you start digging into the Keanu Reeves rabbit hole, it leads to an endless list of people who are well respected in both the Hollywood scene and in the music industry. I'm not going to get into those people right now, who are alleged of not just the P word, but of incest, meaning with their child. I mean, it's hard to, as much as I'm aware of all this stuff, it's still hard to process, because it's just such a horrible thing. So, okay, Matthew Perry, I hope that he is resting in peace. But, I wanted to at least give you information about the Keanu Reeves connection and what it led back to, and some of the rumors and the gossip. And I wanted to make sure to give you an example of a CIA-connected shell that uses not just nonprofits, but people, with deep pockets to work on their behalf, Clive Davis being one of those people. Well, listen, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this short podcast. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, like the video. Talk soon. Bye.